This episode brought to you by Tomes, which is a natural sleep and sound healing portal helping people globally to get to sleep faster and stay asleep longer through tomes.com. That's www.taummhoms.com.
It's My Wright Stuff with your host, Grammy Award-winning record producer and inventor, Toby Wright. My Wright Stuff is brought to you by Tones, a natural sleep and sound healing portal available globally at www.tones.com. That's www.taummhoms.com. And I'm your announcer, Grinnin' Barrett. Here's Toby.
Hey, and welcome back to My Right Stuff, which is a film, TV, sports, and adventure lifestyle podcast. And our guests come from all walks of life and not just the music sector. I'm your host, Lord Toby Wright, and on today's podcast, we have a very special guest, racing legend Johnny O'Connell. But first, I want to thank our sponsor, Tomes, which is a natural sleep and sound healing portal helping people globally to get to sleep faster and stay asleep longer through tomes.com. That's www.taummhoms.com. Well, most of all, a big thank you to all of you who stream, download, watch, and support My Right Stuff. Keep spreading the word. And be sure to click on our show notes below. And follow our link tree for a full list of all the channels we're streaming on, as well as all of our sites and social media platforms. Also, if you're able, please follow our support link to donate to My Right Stuff. Every single dollar helps support My Right Stuff crew who make all of this possible. And of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel as well as the podcast channel of your choice so you never miss a single episode. Please head on over to mywrightstuff.com and go to the store tab and pick up some snazzy merch for those bodies. Well, like I said, today's guest is Mr. Johnny O'Connell, the fast, the funny, and the fearless, who is recognized as one of North America's most talented and versatile racing drivers. After driving for a variety of teams, O'Connell found a home with Corvette Racing. He produced the team's first overall victory at the 24 Hours of Daytona and its first Le Mans class victory in 2001. Some of his notable accolades, check this out: 3-time ALMS GT1 champion, 38 career ALMS wins, record 8 Sebring 12-hour class victories, and he holds the ALMS records for the most starts with 102, the most podium finishes with 80, the most top 5 finishes with 93, and most top 10 finishes with 100, the first American driver to win the 24-hour Le Mans 4 times, and the most successful U.S. factory driver for GM ever. Well, that sure is a quite list of accomplishments, and congrats. Let's have a big, warm, My Right Stuff welcome for Mr. Johnny O'Connell. Hey, Johnny, how are you today?
Good, Toby. Thanks for having me on. Boy, you go through all that stuff, and I was pretty darn lucky. I guess that must be proof that I am somewhat Irish. You know, a lot of luck went along there.
That's right. And I'm surprised you're not like a little leprechaun dude. You know?
Well, if I was, I probably would have been even quicker because, you know, in racing, the lighter you are, the faster you go. But no complaints. You know what, Toby, you know, you were there for you know, a good amount of it. And I was pretty lucky. You know, was on some great teams and won some pretty big stuff.
Absolutely. Well, where do we start? I guess we'd start with how you and I met. And if I recall properly, it was late in 2010 or so with a mutual acquaintance who had a race team of sorts and a rock and roll band. And I guess one of our first races together was at the Nürburgring in Germany, right?
Yeah, that was 2011. And, you know, I had done a bunch of racing, you know, not really racing, more testing at the Nürburgring for GM. So I knew the circuit well. And when our mutual friend, you know, asked me to participate, kind of did it as a favor for him. But it turned out, I mean, just the driving and racing part there, you know, at the Nürburgring, it's a 24-hour race. And what's crazy, and I probably share this with you, I know you weren't there, but at the drivers meeting, it's a big drivers meeting, probably over 600 guys. They start the drivers meeting off by saying, okay, so this year already 36 people have died here at the Nürburgring. So oh yeah, dude, it gets your attention quick. I mean, that place is for keeps. And what was funny is that, all the big factory teams were there, Audi, BMW, Porsche. And I know all the top guys, from Le Mans and all the racing, internationally and in the States. And I'm racing there in a Renault Clio. And they're like, hey, dude, what car are you in? And I'm like, a Renault Clio. And which in the straightaway, one of the slowest cars, but in the corner, wicked fast car. Nothing was as quick. And so really turned into being a fun event, a lot of challenges, and definitely a memorable moment in my life.
Oh yeah, and that was definitely a big memorable moment in my life as well. It was quite the spectacle because I'd never seen anything like that before.
Well, it was crazy because if you remember, it was a Danish team, a tiny little team, and of about 6, maybe 8 guys max. And but it really, so Jan Magnussen was my teammate, first at Panos and then at Corvette. Great guy, love the Danish people. And but really didn't know how special they were. There was one day, I think it was on Friday before the race or whatever. It was about 50 degrees. It's raining, and we have to go do a meet and greet, shake hands, and sign posters and all that kind of stuff at the Danish camp. And there must have been, maybe 200 people at this camp. It's freezing. I'm shivering. I just want to get inside someplace warm. And they are outside in the rain playing, soaking wet and just having a great time. So, definitely, those Danish people are okay in my book.
Amen, brother. I still love them all. They're great people. And well, tell me, let's start back in your start at 1987. You won the Rookie of the Year. And can you tell me about your start in motor racing? And was this something you always wanted to do?
Yeah, you know what? I actually, I was probably Toby, true story, about 5 years old. And we went on a family vacation to Cape Cod. There was a go-kart track nearby. And so my father took my, older brother, my older sister, and myself there. And my brother and sister were tall enough. You remember when they had that stupid height line? You had to be tall to get on a ride.
Yeah.
Well, I was too tiny. But my dad, put me on his lap and we drove around. And it's funny because, to this day, I can remember the smells. I can remember the sounds. I remember the racetrack. And so we, that left an amazing impression on me. And we went back the next year. And even though I wasn't tall enough, they did let me drive one. And I must have been like 40, 50 pounds. So I killed everyone. And it was, it's funny, lighter you are, the faster you go. And, from that moment on, I really, there was something about it. And in my second grade teacher, Miss Fogarty, it was in the second grade where, you go over what it's like to be American. You learn the Star Spangled Banner and the Pledge of Allegiance and all that kind of stuff. And he was like, when you live in this country, if you want to be a doctor, you can be a doctor. If you want to be, a sanitation worker, you can do basically whatever you wanted. And I was like, I want to race cars. And literally, my entire life, I started cutting lawns in the 3rd grade, saving my money to get a go-kart. And then things, just naturally progressed from there. I actually chose my college because there was good go-karting nearby so I could continue racing. One thing led to another. And then, and I started racing cars in 1984, won a championship, and then went to work for a racing school and won another championship and things. My first pro races were in 1986. Okay. And 87 was probably my breakout year where I really, people were like, wow, this kid's pretty crazy fast. And that was in Formula Atlantics, and we won the championship. And we either won or broke. We didn't wreck, but we we would have a mechanical. We were a poor team. We didn't have much money, but that's pretty much what put me on everybody's radar. So very blessed, and from that point on, things just kind of continued on.
That's great, and I love stories like that, and just follow your passion, right? That's
Well,
great.
it's funny because I had it in my mind that I was going to give myself till I was 30, and it's funny
Okay.
because even though I was having success, I was poor, and I mean like as in when I was living in Riverside, California, we myself and my roommate, he was poor as well. He actually went on to be one of the top engineers at Ford. Really cool guy, but
Awesome.
we would, you're eating macaroni and cheese and white bread, and not like the canned macaroni and cheese, the stuff that you got to mix it with butter. And
Oh yeah.
we actually stole our furniture from a Holiday Inn poolside. So we had we
Nice.
had like two pool chairs, crappy little TV, and you look back on that, it was some of the most fun times. But I tell my son I was 27, and this is true, living in a converted one-car garage. It had a bed, it had a shower and a toilet, and then a
Oh wow.
microwave in the regular garage. And so it's not like I was really attractive to the ladies. I had no money, and and but I was committed, and luckily
Right.
things took off, and here we are today.
That's awesome. Well, I see all those trophies behind you. It's quite impressive. Which of those are you most proud of, and why?
Boy, it'd be so hard to pick one. It's funny, Toby. Early in my career, every now and then you'd give a trophy away to a crew member or something like that, or But in 1987, I became good friends with Bobby Rahal, guy that won the Indy 500, very famous, guy in
Right.
racing.
Right.
And he invited me to spend the weekend with him at his house one time, and he showed me
Wow.
his trophy room, and I was like, oh wow, this is pretty cool. and
I
and but
bet.
he said something rather profound in that he's like, hold on to your stuff, because the day's going to come when you're not racing, and each trophy or little trinket is going to be a memory for you to look back on. And so I did that, and and I was very, very, very lucky, and to win a lot of stuff. To pick one, it's almost impossible. I mean, if you, my last win at the mall in 2009, which was my
Okay.
fourth win there, which was no American had ever won for. So that one
Right.
was pretty special. And what made that one even more special is during that race, one of my teammates, Jan Magnuson, got food poisoning.
Oh
And,
wow.
and so it was really, and that was like 10 o'clock at night, meaning that there was about 15 hours still to go. And
Right.
and so myself and Antonio Garcia went back and forth. So I'd be in the car for 2 or 3 hours, get out, shower, get a massage, sleep, what I could, then get back in the car. So that one
Sure.
was very old school. Back in the old days, they did Le Mans with just two drivers, and so
Right.
it was you had to really dig deep to make that happen.
Right. Right. So you won the first outing, your first outing in the world's most celebrated race, which is Le Mans. And what did that feel like? Like, and what team was that with?
That was with Nissan, and
Okay.
pretty spectacular, to be honest with you. I mean, it's like, yeah,
I bet.
I never really was like, yeah, maybe one day I get to go to Le Mans. I mean, that dream was so far out there, and
Sure.
they, you get the call, and hey, we're doing Le Mans, and I'm like, all right.
Okay.
So but I mean, there's just, I've done the Indy 500, and the Indy 500 is very cool, but there's a
Right.
magic, about Le Mans, the worldwide spectacle of it, the total focus of the world on it, the passion of the Europeans towards that race. And, there's that movie, is it, no, not Rush, no, Ford versus Ferrari.
Yeah. Ford
And
versus
one
Ferrari.
thing they
Exactly.
did in that movie that they caught was really the essence and the significance of Le Mans. And so, but
Right.
I remember the first time, looking down the Mulsanne straightaway before, I'd driven on it, and just being like, wow. I mean, it goes on and on and on. And then getting those first laps, there is just such an amazing rhythm and vibe to that place. I mean, you are hauling.
Oh, I
And
bet.
so yeah, no, that was pretty spectacular. And then to win, you win there, you get up on the podium, and it looks out over the front straightaway, and
Right.
there's 150,000 people there, and they're waving flags, and
Oh, man.
and then they play the national anthem, our national anthem, and
Right.
you talk about a proud moment. It is when you're representing your country, overseas, and
Right.
you win, and they play your national anthem. That's a pretty choke you up moment.
Absolutely, man. That's just I'm getting chills just
Yeah.
thinking about it, right? And but you also ran you mentioned you ran a season with Indycar. What was that
Yeah,
like and why was it only one season?
because it was pretty miserable. No,
Oh, okay.
it is. They say surround yourself with good people and good things happen. Unfortunately, the IndyCar stuff, we were doing that with my sports car team. And so we
Okay.
didn't really have a lot of knowledge on how to set up the car. We had no money to go testing.
Okay.
And so it was show up and run. And so you know what? It just, with that team, it didn't work well. The following year, I got an opportunity at Indy to get in one of AJ Foyt's cars. And
Okay.
whereas in '96, every day you thought, man, I hope I don't get killed today, which is
Right.
legit. You know?
Right.
And to all of a sudden being like, man, I have a car that I might be able to win this thing with. And the racetrack was comfortable and it wasn't scary. And then I had an oil fitting break and
Oh,
slammed into turn one, destroyed the front of the car, my feet, and all that kind of stuff. So that was 8 months learning to walk again, and I thought about it, and I'm like, you know what? I'd much rather have a long career in sports cars than a short career in Indy cars or short
right,
life.
right.
And
Yeah.
so and luckily, God's funny because he steers you in directions, and then
Absolutely.
everything, just kind of, everything happens for a reason. And then my sports car career, started building that back up again, and driving for a guy named Don Panos in prototypes.
Okay.
And then literally the biggest break, Toby, without a doubt, was, getting associated with GM. And it's
Right.
funny
Okay.
because I could see the direction that the Panos team was going, which was not a positive direction, from my point of view. And I literally made a phone call to the program manager at Corvette, a guy named Doug Feehan, and didn't get him. Got his voicemail, and because I'm kind
Okay.
of cheeky, I was like, "Hey, Doug, it's Tony O'Connell here. You might remember me from those days when I beat up on you in the Nissan, and so, and then surprising, he just click on me right there. But I was like, hey, if your dance card isn't filled for next year, give me a call. I'd love to talk to you. And 8 hours later, had an offer. So,
Oh, that's amazing.
well, it was all timing. And then, of course, very first race, with Corvette was the 24 Hours of Daytona. A perfect
Sure.
time because, I was teamed with Ron Fellows, Chris Neifel, and a guy named Frank Freon. The
Okay.
other car was Dale Earnhardt Jr., Andy
Oh,
Pilgrim, and
wow.
Terry Collins. So the eyes of the U.S. racing world was on us, and because
Sure.
of me, because of Dale Earnhardt, and it was really cool because a lot of times our stints coincided. So I literally got to draft at Daytona with Big E, and
Oh, nice.
so some really good memories there. But we went on to win the thing overall. And from that point on, we just never looked back. I mean, it was pretty spectacular.
That's fabulous. Like,
Yeah.
oh man. So you must have had some mentors along the way, right? And like, who gave you your best driving advice and all that racing advice along the way?
Oh God, mentors. Ray Hall a little bit,
Okay.
um, and he introduced me to Jackie Stewart. I'd been trying to get over to Europe, and we went over and tested for Europe. We were really quick, and but I had Jackie Stewart and Bobby Rahal trying to get sponsorship from American companies like Marlboro or Camel or Budweiser, Coca-Cola. The
Right.
sad fact was those companies did not want to spend, if they were spending money in England, they wanted to spend it on a British guy, not an American guy.
Oh,
And
okay.
which was really, in my mind, pretty sad and pathetic, but that was their marketing strategy. So when we couldn't raise the budget to get over there, that was when I was like, all right, we need to make something, happen here in the States. So as far as like a great mentor, I honestly, I never really had one. I had to do it, through my own grit and determination and, the help of that big guy upstairs. So, but that, which doesn't mean along the way I didn't, have some amazing people. There was a guy named Alistair McNeil early in my career when we won the Formula Atlantic Championship. He was probably the one of the neatest guys in racing. I did drive for Chip Ganassi for 1 year, and it was there were a lot of good people, and of course I got a stupid fly around here. So and all the great people at GM. One guy. It was funny because in 2002, going into that year, I'd been told I'd be able to run for a championship, and so. Before the very first race at Sebring, the series changed the rule. It was a stupid rule, whereas that one driver that spent the most time in the car got an extra point. Okay. And so we're doing the 12 hours of Sebring. Corvette had never won there. With about 3 hours to go, they put me in the car, and I'm thinking I'm going to take this thing home because I'll be adjusted to the night. I'm the only guy that's won. My lap times have been, in my mind, quicker than everybody else. And I'd run that race more than anybody else. And so I get about an hour and a half into the stint. I've got half a tank, of fuel, and they tell me to pit. And I'm like,
wow, okay.
Yeah, I'm like, what's up? What's up? They're like, pit next lap, driver change. And I'm like, I'm good. All's good here. Pit next lap, driver change. So I come in, I get out, and they put my teammate Ron Fellows in. And I love Ron. But I realized they did that so he could get the point. Okay, for the bonus point. So I get off, I get out of the car and I'm pretty fired up, and I can be pretty stupid when I'm fired up. And there's a guy named Herb Fischel, and Herb was in charge of all GM Motorsports, NASCAR, Indycar, sports car, you name it. Big dog. And he and Doug Feehan, the program manager, are sitting in two chairs. They're feeling good because looks like we're gonna win. And I get out and I'm like, I just want you guys to know that the fucking car is fine. And I'm like pissed, And I go back into the trailer and I'm punching cabinets, and I'm really. I mean, you got to remember, I was told I could run for a championship. Okay. I trained all winter. I visualized. That's all I've got in my mind is being on fire and getting another championship. And so, Robin Pratt, who is the wife of the team owner, is like, hey, it's, you're going to win Sebring. It's good. Just settle down. Okay. And I settled down, went out, did the podium and sprayed champagne and all that kind of stuff. The next day I'm driving back, to Flowery Branch, Georgia. And I realized, man, you should probably apologize because you were kind of a jerk. And so I called everybody up, and I'm like, hey, I'm really sorry. I was so fired up, and I didn't like being pulled out of the car. And they're like, yeah, don't worry about it. You did a great job. We won, yada, yada, yada. Herb Fischel, okay, the big dog, okay.
Right.
So I don't get him. I get his voicemail, and Monday goes by, no call. Tuesday, Wednesday, no call. Thursday, no call. Thursday afternoon, I'm like, all right, I better start building a resume again and calling teams and all that kind of stuff. He finally calls Toby. He calls on Friday, and Herb's kind of like the Southern guy, and he's like, Johnny, how you doing today? I'm like, hey, Herb, good to hear your voice. He's like, how's Flowery Branch? I hear that's just the most beautiful town. Come to think of it, I had one of the best dinners of my life. He starts going on like a 5-minute chat about my town. And I'm like, this is a weird way to fire a guy. And so finally, I'm like, listen, Herb, the reason I called is because, I know I was pretty unprofessional, when I got out of the car, but I just thought it was a huge mistake. My lap times were great. I was adjusted to the dark, and really, I'd already won that race 3 times. I thought I was the guy to bring it home. And, I'm sorry, I was so pissed off. I was just angry you guys, pulled me out of the car.
Right.
And verbatim almost, he's like, Johnny, I tell you what, It's the day when we pull you out of a car and you don't get pissed is that we're no longer interested in you. So we're really happy to have you part of the team, and you're doing a great job. So I was like, oh, I found a good home, because when the guy at the pinnacle, the top, can get in your head and know what mental state you need to be in to be a warrior, on the racetrack.
Right.
It was good. So yeah, no, I mean, so that year we went on. Ron won the championship, and but I want to say, it's funny because it still pisses me off. You introduced me as 3, ALMS GT championships, where in my mind it's 4, and because
sorry.
Yeah, well, no, I mean it's what's in the record books.
Right.
It really, but it does, it's one of those things that angers you. And my teammate Ron Fellows, to his credit, several races into the season, he's like, listen, I know you're having to take a bullet for me this year. I really appreciate it. Next year, I'll support you. And so that was pretty classy. And then at the end of the year, at the banquet, the champion gets a special ring, champion's ring, pretty cool ring.
Right.
And he and his wife, Linda, actually went out and had a duplicate made for me. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, so that was pretty cool. So even though I can't really state it, I feel it. So and then Ron and I went on to win the championship the next year, and then later in my time, actually 2 more times with Ron. And then so a total of 3 with Ron, and then I also got one in 2008 with Jan Magnuson. So it was a great time, And then after the Corvette years, they moved me over to Cadillac. So I got another 7 years, racing for them, and to this day I'm still a representative for Cadillac and make speeches and stuff like that.
That's fabulous. I love the caddy racing team, and of course, I happen to be sporting a little bit of caddy racing this morning.
Nothing like free sportswear,
That's right. I went to the Detroit Grand Prix, and I got hooked up from some friends there, and it was a great race though too, and it was the Indy race.
I for some reason or not, believe it or not, I have more wins at the Detroit Grand Prix than anybody, combining Corvette and Cadillac type stuff. And I always loved it because when you look off in the distance, at that race, you can see the Rensen, you can see downtown Detroit, and every big dog GM, executive is there. And so I always would consider it, it was like our Super Bowl. And I had to be Joe Montana.
That's right. That's right.
Tom Brady. So
Tom Brady, there you go.
So that is an amazing place, and somewhere around all this mess, there's some Detroit Grand Prix trophies.
Well, there certainly are impressive behind you. But so you did a bunch of other stuff too, like you did a little analyst for ESPN and for the Le Mans broadcast, right? Did you ever do any American racing broadcasting, or is it just for Le Mans?
No, well, no, it was all the sports car racing in the States and all that kind of stuff. And so, so that was, and it was really kind of fun because I would also do some of the lower formula car races for the young, late teen, early 20 guys, they want to be Indycar drivers. And I'm just me, stupid fly. I'm just me. And so, I'm not, when you watch most races, the color commentator, which is what I was, is a little bit, politically correct, and you don't, you be cautious what you say. I'd say what I felt. And so I'd be like, well, that's a move. I don't know what that guy was thinking and all that kind of stuff. And it was funny because there's this one time, at a race, and this woman comes up to me, and the mother of one of the young drivers, and she's like, "You're ruining my son's career." And I was like, well, actually, he's ruining his career. So, I was like, she was pretty angry because the color commentary wasn't to her favor. But
okay.
Yeah, but luckily a lot of the guys that, the young guys that, I spoke of have gone on to have great careers.
That's fabulous. And it's and you did some high performance driving coach type stuff at Bondurant, right?
Yep. Yeah. So I've always done a lot of teaching, for Bondurant and the other schools. Actually right now I do a whole lot of private coaching.
Okay.
for high end individuals that have their Ferraris or Porsches or race cars. So I teach them how to drive them better and safer.
Okay.
And something I always enjoyed, there's about a 3 or 4 year span where I was the vice president of the Bondurant School, and which sadly
Awesome.
is no longer in existence. But yeah, no, you know what? Again, I love the sport, and to a lot of guys, can do whatever it is, whether it's football, baseball, play guitar, whatever, but they don't know how to teach.
Right.
And I was pretty lucky. Very early in my career, I became a student of the sport and enjoy teaching. And it occurred to me, it's a lot like it was just like college. There were some classes that were easy because the professor explained things in a way that was easy to understand. Other
Right.
professors, or people don't have that ability. And so I always took it upon myself. And because you can always look in a person's eyes and say if they get it or they don't.
Right.
And if they don't get it, you don't blame the other person for being stupid. You take it upon yourself to explain it in a different way that they might
Right.
be able to understand. So yeah, no, I enjoy that, and it's it is. I'm probably going to continue teaching for another, maybe another 10 years.
Excellent. Well, that gives me a chance to get in the car with you and have you teach me how to drive.
I would be happy to do it. We'll get you out to a racetrack.
Absolutely. Yeah, only on
Yeah.
the racetrack though, right?
There we
Can't
go.
go-
There we go. Well,
can't be fast in the street.
yeah, there might be a couple roads in Georgia that are every now and then a high speed occurrence happens, but
Oh,
we.
well, I know you have some high performance vehicles in your garage. You
Oh
ever
yeah,
get
we got.
speeding tickets?
Actually, I've been lucky. I haven't gotten one in a while. I've got a great story if you wanted to hear it. So this is
I'd love
funny.
to.
So my son Kanan, okay,
I do.
he's also working on racing. Well, with Cadillac, I get free cars. So a couple years back, they give me a CTSV. It's
Okay.
whew, so fast. I want to say that one was 640 horsepower,
Wow.
and they give the car to me. I'm like, hey, what a great way to break it in. I'm going to drive out from Georgia to Arizona, spend
Okay.
my birthday and my son's birthday together. It's around the same date, and then I'll zip on back. So I'm like, we have a great time, and now I gotta drive back. So I'm driving across Texas. Okay,
Okay.
I'm doing a little bit over 90. I'm about 4 car lengths at 90 behind this white Lexus. Okay,
Okay.
so I'm tailgating them. Okay, because we're going 90. Okay,
Right.
and and I'm on my cell phone like this, and I'm checking out Twitter or something stupid, and I look to the right, and there's a cop. There's a
Uh-oh.
and I look at him, I look ahead, I look at him again, and I just start laughing. And so he lights up,
Okay.
and I pull over to the shoulder, and he comes up. I roll down the window. Before he can say a word, I say, please tell me I'm the first person you've ever caught speeding, tailgating, and texting at the same time. And he started laughing. He started laughing. So, I'm like, hey, this really in my car. I race for GM and all that kind of stuff. And he goes back. He comes back and he's like, listen, I know what you're doing. I know you know what you're doing. Bring the speed down, put the phone away. He let me off. So,
Oh, that's awesome. How
yeah,
lucky.
yeah. So that was Irish. So,
There
but
you
yeah,
go.
but that is one of those great speeding stories that wind up with you not in handcuffs. So it was,
That's beautiful.
yeah, that's good stuff.
Absolutely. And like, okay, so I know you're into karate and stuff like that. So how do you keep your balance between the racing and life, all of life's curves and straights, and just all of the stuff that goes on in your life? I know that karate has a big discipline, right? So
Yeah.
it's
So
part of the art.
the I actually haven't not done martial arts for a while because you get to once you're at a black belt, then you start training people that are lower belts,
Right.
and I started getting injuries. So I was like, I can't afford to do that. Um,
Okay.
but I'm way into training. So like, and I built a new house that has a pretty killer gym in it. And then I'm on the lake.
Awesome.
So I do a lot of swimming. I do a real lot of swimming. And but as far as balance, it's the it's a funny thing because life is challenging for everybody. It doesn't matter. I know a
Absolutely.
whole lot of super rich people, and that they got their own jets, they got fancy houses and all that kind of stuff. That
Right.
cat still has moments of life. I think that's just God's plans, up and down, up and down. You got to work your way through it. And it's funny because for me, racing is always my safe place, which
Okay.
sounds stupid, but that is where mentally I know where my head needs to be. And
Right.
so as far as what do I do, as far as just to keep my mental health? Well, I make sure I work out every day. That always makes me feel better.
Okay.
Always try to be positive, around people.
Absolutely.
But the funny thing is everybody has a point in their life where they're really down, when they're beaten up, and
Oh
you get
yeah.
out of it. And you get out of it. And so whenever I get to a point where I'm like, well, whether it's my body hurting or, girl broke up with me or, any, one of those stupid things that can happen in life,
Right.
I can just say, well, dude, you've been way, way, way lower than this and found your way back. And so just looking at like, hey, we get through this. And now I got to say, I haven't had one of those days in a while,
Good.
where you're down, but yeah, no, I just, what, Toby, I wake up, try to wake up every day and have good energy and be positive. So,
And that's awesome. And I know that you do like or you used to do. I don't know if you still do it at the annual charity auction at Road Atlanta for Alzheimer's disease. You still
yeah,
do that?
no, well, that was very racing,
Oriented, maybe.
it required racing in order for me to put on that event. And
Oh, okay.
so no, we still give to the Alzheimer's Association. I lost my father to Alzheimer's, and
Right.
so yeah, you try to do stuff like that. I'm not, but again, I try to help people when possible, and always, with fans, of mine or Corvette, anybody reaches out, you never be that guy that is not, appreciative and thankful for fans.
That's
And
right.
it is. Can I share a jerky story?
Please do.
So this was 1990 or 91, and I had just finished doing the 24 hours of Daytona. And
Okay.
myself and another race car driver had been hired to put on an event to be the coaches for a Hyundai event down in West Palm Beach. And the
Okay.
hotel we were staying in was where the Atlanta Braves stayed for their spring training. So
Cool.
I get back from the track one day and I'm walking into the lobby and there's this guy. Look, he could have been a dentist. I mean, he did not look like an athlete. And these little kids who've been like hanging out, they're 8, 9, 10 years old, run up to this guy with baseballs and all that kind of stuff. And they're like, hey, and he's like, guys, not today, not today.
Oh
Okay.
wow.
And he gets on the elevator and I'm next to him and I'm looking at the guy and it's what was it, Steve Maddox or something? Greg Maddox.
Greg
Greg
Maddox.
Maddox.
Right. Right.
Amazing pitcher, amazing pitcher.
Yep.
And 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 so he was like obviously up in the penthouse. I don't know, but I get off the elevator and I'm thinking, what a jerk. You know what a total jerk. Because
Sure.
I mean, it would have taken him all of 30 seconds to make those kids happy. You
For
know,
life.
and for life, yeah. And yeah, I don't think you would ever find a racing driver act like that. Is the first time I met Danny Ungaius. Danny Ungaius was an Indycar driver in the 70s and 80s,
Yes, he was.
and he was one of my guys along with AJ Foyt, and went to the Trenton 200 and
Okay.
Trenton, New Jersey, and Danny had thought he won the race, pulled in the victory circle, and they told him, no, you didn't win, and sent him back, And so I go in, and he's in the
Whoa.
back of his trailer, and I had a New York Cosmos hat. Why I remember that, I don't know. And but I was like, Mr. Ungaius, I'm a big fan. Could you sign my hat? And he signed the hat. Now I'm sure the
Okay.
last thing that dude wanted it after being like humiliated for pulling in the victory circle and then getting kicked out and angry about the race and all that kind of stuff, still
Right.
shows grace, just be like, this kid's important. And so that is,
Absolutely.
yes, so that is, that's the way, that was my example, as
Right.
an athlete. You know what? These people, you are a role model. I mean, and so those for those athletes that are like, I'm not a role model. Well, yeah, you are. People look
You
up
are.
to you. Young kids look up to you. And it
That's
doesn't
right.
matter whether you're a musician, a athlete, an artist, or whatever. When you get to a certain point, you are a role model and your behavior matters.
Speaking of autographs, so what's the wildest thing that you've ever been asked to autograph besides some boobs?
Yeah, we done the. I tell you what, you never forget the first
Set of
breast.
boobs, right?
that
I
you
mean, I've done it too, right? So
Yeah, that is that's a great moment in life. Uh,
absolutely.
but hard to say. I've signed so many, Corvettes or Cadillacs, or I've signed a whole lot of cars. Any
Okay.
like, but I can't, honestly, I can't recall ever signing anything that I was like, well, this is kind of weird. It's funny because you just saying that, it's like in that movie Step Brothers,
Right,
where
right.
they're becoming friends, and he's like, look at the sword, and he's like, you see that smudge there? Yeah, that's Randy Jackson. And he's like, why'd you have Randy Jackson sign your samurai sword? Well, if you have a samurai sword, you're not going to ask him not to sign it. And so, yeah.
That's right.
So I have Toby never had, one of those moments, but if again, I've had a few concussions over my career, so maybe there were some funny things. I just can't remember
All right. Okay, I gotcha.
them.
And so
Yeah.
I know a lot of sports figures have superstitions. Do you have any?
I had a fair amount. Yeah. I mean, I always like to
Okay.
drink coffee, race day out of a red cup. I like to be a
Okay.
little bit early to a few people on the team. They know that it's just an act, but just be like,
Okay.
"How are you this morning?" And just certain little things, like to stretch, visualize, but the red coffee in a red cup, and then if I have if I get up in the morning and on the way to the track, I stop at McDonald's and grab a sausage McMuffin and a coffee. Well, then and I have a good day. The next day, you guarantee I'm going to go and have a sausage McMuffin and a coffee. So,
Amen.
so yeah, little things like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I know that. Do you have any secret talents? Hidden talents?
Oh, goodness gracious.
I bet you do.
Well, I don't know whether I want to share them. I play a little. I play a little piano, not well.
Okay.
I enjoy playing ping pong,
Okay.
but hidden talents, man. I gotta tell you what. If I shared them, they wouldn't be hidden anymore. So,
That's true. That's true.
yeah. Well, all right. There's a question for you. Any hidden talents?
Oh, I have plenty, but I'm not going to
All
share
right.
them.
There we go. All right.
But
That's
see, I know one of yours that you didn't mention because it's already been broadcast around the world. It was a Super Bowl commercial that
oh
you were
yeah,
in, right?
yeah,
And you
yeah.
you were a rap star for a minute. How was
Funny.
that?
That was pretty cool. It was funny. It was the Chevy "Ain't We Got Love" Super Bowl commercial,
That's right.
and my bit was shot at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and it was really cool because they literally, I had a limo pick me up at the fancy hotel they put me in, and I'm riding in the limo. I get to the racetrack, and it's like about 38 degrees. It's really super cold. And so they go to introduce me to the director, and the director's
Right.
a black guy. And he's like, Johnny, you ever hear of LL Cool J? I'm like, yeah. He's like, okay, well, we're going to do a little bit on the rap on going back to Cali. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. Wait, you're going to have a balding, redheaded white guy rap? And he's like, he started laughing. He's like, yeah, no, it's going to be great.
Top is down on the black Corvette, and it's fly because it's sitting on Dayton.
And so literally now, normally your race suit, you wear fireproof underwear and all that kind of stuff, and you got a little covering. None of that was there. I just had a driving suit. So I'm like just naked under my suit, and between takes, they, come up and wrap a blanket around you. If you watch the commercial, you'll see I've got my gloves on. And
Right.
but so we do the first commercial, and then And then he's like, "Oh man, that was great. That came out super," and all that kind of stuff. He's like, "Hey, you don't know American Pie, do you?" And I'm like, "Are you kidding?" I used to sing that to my kids when they were little. He's like, "Let me hear you sing." So I'm like, "Bye, bye." So I sing. He's like, "Dude, you're good." And so he's like, "Let's do a couple cuts of that." And
Oh,
so we do
okay.
that. And that turned into a second commercial that was not run at the Super Bowl. But
Ah,
the whole Super Bowl thing was funny because nobody at GM told me it was a Super Bowl commercial. I was just told you we're doing a commercial.
right.
So I'm literally driving down to Sebring, Florida to test.
Okay.
And I'm like in the middle of nowhere and I get a phone call and pick up my cell and it's my, GM rep calling me up. He's like, "Where are you?" And I'm like, "Man, what do you mean, where am I?" I'm driving down to, to Sebring. He's like, "Well, you better find a bar real quick because your commercial is the first one at halftime for the Super Bowl." And I'm like, "What?" Well, I'm in the middle of nowhere. There ain't no way I'm going to find a bar. So, but I'm driving along and then my phone just starts exploding, with
Oh,
text
hell
messages,
yeah.
phone calls and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that was, coming that was a pretty cool memory and something that you can look back on and be like, "Yeah, I was in a Super Bowl commercial. That's pretty cool."
That is pretty cool. That's not many people can boast that one.
Yeah, yeah, it was good. It was fun.
So let's jump back into the racing world for a second. Actually, I got another question. Speaking of the music thing, what's your favorite kind of music? And do you listen when you're racing?
I used to when I was younger. I would use it as a motivational tool.
Okay.
I love listening to the Who. Quadrophenia was I enjoyed that.
Okay.
Phil Collins. I can feel it in the air tonight. All that kind of stuff. Now I got to tell you. All right, so I do love country music and all that kind of
Okay.
stuff. But if I'm trying to get pumped up or in a like on my toes aggressive mood, Eminem. You know,
Really? Okay.
yeah, that lose yourself in the moment, you own it, and all
Yep.
that kind of
Yep.
stuff. So yeah, no, it is that is a very powerful lyrics and
Absolutely.
I still I they have guys like you have to be like tweaking the music because ain't no way anybody can talk that quick. So I mean, it is because I've tried it. So but yeah, no, I like that. I like kind of I like listen to some Nelly, but then at the same time I'll listen to Maroon 5. So
Okay.
so yeah, and then Kelly. My daughter Kelly has actually
I do.
sung before,
Yes, she
and
has.
so she does Ariana Grande like Ariana Grande, and
Oh
she
wow.
does SZA. There's this chick
Oh
named
yeah.
SZA,
Yep.
and I got to tell you, she is. If you close your eyes, you'd be like, "Wow, man, that's SZA." Yeah. So she is. She,
Wow.
here's the thing that crushes me, Toby. You know how how good she is, and she's cute and beautiful, and I'm
Yep.
like, God, to do something with this gift, and she's
Right.
she doesn't she like she keeps it to herself. So when my happiest moments in life, if you want to know when's Johnny really happy, it's when I'm hanging out in the house and she's just puttering around singing and
Oh,
just
cool.
filling the
Okay.
house with her voice. So yeah, no, so that's and of course that one album that she was going to be on, that
Right.
music I loved. I mean, that was heavy metal stuff, and I can't say I'm a real metalhead,
Right.
and so I mean that's really low down on what I listen to. That stuff, dude, appealed to a guy like me, and
Okay.
so that's a shame that thing never came out and got put together. I think that was probably I'm not aware of all your works, but I know from that was spectacular.
Well, thank you. That was quite a labor of love, as it were.
Yeah,
And yes, the album's never seen the light of day, but hopefully that we can keep doing something with that. Who knows? You never
yeah,
know, right?
we never, yeah.
You
So that
never
is,
know. And I'd love to work with Kelly. I mean, I think she's
yeah,
amazing. Let's
yeah,
jump back into the racing part of it for a minute. And
yeah.
so I'm thinking, I saw a crash at Laguna Seca with one of your wonderful, amazing driving partners, which was Jan Magnuson.
Yeah.
And he kind of got shoved into the wall and then brake checked, and then he had in the 56G and head on into the wall. And I asked him, and I know the team asked you guys, asked him, what were you doing with your foot all the way in the accelerator as you're hitting the wall? He's like, I wanted to bounce off the wall and maybe I'd win. which to me was like the craziest thing I'd ever heard at that point. And so I was wondering, what was your biggest crash, and how many G's do you think you sustained? Because I know that it's really some mind-boggling numbers.
The one at Indy that I had when an oil fitting broke was 89 G's. And
holy smoke!
So I've had some really, really big hits. My first one, if people watching this want to see a big wreck, there was in '93. I want to say it was at Watkins Glen International. So all you got to do, Google Watkins Glen Nissan crash, and that thing's been viewed a zillion times. That one was big. I had a big one in 2017, and didn't rang my bell worse than I ever had. Like in most wrecks, I haven't been knocked out, and didn't get knocked out in this one, but I knew I had rung my bell bad.
Right.
And, so you have them, you accept it. It's part of the sport. Twice I've had to get cut out of cars, and twice, I've had to, when you have a big wreck, they get you back into the infield medical center. They cut all your clothes off you, cause they got to look and see, you realize, when you've been in a wreck, you are to a doctor what a car is to a mechanic. That's it. So, but I remember the one in Indy, because I was in pain, and I'm like, Demerol, and they won't give you anything until they know your head's all right. And I'm feeling for Demerol. They're cutting my clothes off me. And I remember looking down at my left foot, and my little toe was where my big toe should be, and my big toe was where my little toe should be.
Oh,
yeah. So that was pretty ugly, but they, they put you back together, and again, it's almost like, when you get through something like that, the funny thing is your mindset is, I got to get back into a car quick. You got to conquer those demons. You don't want to sit there and think, oh my gosh, I could have been killed. And what would have happened to my kids and my wife and all that kind of stuff. And so you got to be so single focused. And so literally even before I could walk, I was back in a race car. So I would just have somebody lift me and put me in the car. So, so that is, it's funny because, when you go and you talk to elementary school or junior high, even high school, and you're like, all right, any questions? Yeah. Have you ever wrecked? You go through that. And what do you do if you got to take a leak? And you're like, oh, you go. And so, you go. And it's part of the sport. And, there's two types of drivers. There are those that have hit the wall, and those that are gonna hit the wall, so it is just how it is. Yeah.
And it just sounds like everybody's gonna hit the wall eventually.
Oh yeah. Well, I can't name a top professional that has not had a moment where they, clobbered a wall. So
right.
A lot of times, almost all my bad ones were because of somebody else's error or mechanical. Something broke on the car. So, but they still happen.
Yeah, I remember Jan telling me that, his son, Kevin Magnuson, who we all know and love, was he wasn't really a race car driver until he, had that big one. And then
the one at Macau.
And the one at Macau. And then he said, oh, he's now a race car driver. And that kind of freaked me out. Yeah. Like, that's what it takes to be a race car driver. It's like, oh, holy shit, dude. Well, that's your son you're talking about.
But that's knowing, does he have the mental toughness and fitness to put it behind him and say, no, I want this bad enough. I got to get back in there. Yeah. So different breed.
A totally different breed. And I love that about, that family and all those people that we met over there. And that was great. So speaking of like F1 and stuff, is there any series that you would have ever liked to run in that you didn't, or, vice versa?
Yeah, well, definitely Formula One. That was the goal when I started out. Like I mentioned earlier, even with some pretty big names trying to raise money, we couldn't make that happen.
Okay.
So I would have loved, would have loved that. Would have loved a proper career in IndyCars with a proper Penske team or something like that.
Right. Okay.
Never got the opportunity. So, you look at, and again, you where you are in your racing career in your life, you see what options are realistic and which provides you with the best path towards the top of that that genre. For me,
Right.
in sports cars, I found it. So it is. Yeah. Are there other things I would have loved to have done? Yeah. But am I at a place where I'm like very happy, content, and peace with my career? Yeah. Yeah. Very much so.
Good. Good.
Yeah.
That's great because regrets suck. That's all
Oh
I
yeah.
got to tell you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what you try to do is you try to share, those regrets and all that kind of stuff with your children, as
That's
in,
exactly right.
like, man, I wish if I could go back to being 25, I'd do this, this, and this, and this.
Right. Right.
So, but they're kids and they're like, yeah, right, dad, whatever.
Exactly. And then they make their own decisions, and then you go, "What the hell was that?"
I know. Yeah. And then in 10 years, they'll come to you and say, you know what? You were right. I should have listened. Yeah. So,
Exactly. So,
that's,
if you could have any car in the world, what would it
yeah.
be?
Well, if
Any
God
car.
came to me and said, Johnny, you can only have 1, I'm picking a pickup truck.
Really?
You have a pickup truck, you got everything you need. So you go to the Home Depot and you load it up with stuff, and you don't have to be that person. Hey man, can I buy your truck? No, And so
Okay.
but if you were to ask me what is one of my favorite cars to drive, the Cadillac V Series is insane how good it is. It's
Sweet.
it's every bit as athletic as the Corvette, uh,
Okay.
but it is so refined, and I mean just the feel and the handling of the car. If you ever, and I know people are like Cadillac, if you see a V on the back of a Cadillac, that is a serious car. And to me, it's the best car GM makes.
Awesome.
I'd say, everyone's like, yeah, Ferrari. And I'd be like, yeah, Ferrari would be nice. But then it's every 10, 15,000 miles. You got to bring it to the Ferrari dealership for another, $10,000 tune up. And,
Amen.
so if it wasn't a GM car, I honestly, Porsche builds an amazing car. Porsche is a lot
Right.
like a Corvette in that you can beat the crap out of it every day. And it's like, okay, that's all you got. And
Right.
so and they have a great feel to them. So yeah, it'd be that's a tough question, but like I don't think Porsche makes a pickup truck. So I'm
Not
staying
yet.
I'm staying with my Chevy Silverado.
Okay, there you go. And so, what do you think of the new the C8R?
Oh, love it! Beautiful car. Love how it drives. All that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And I mean, an interesting story. It was actually around 2007. We were doing a Michelin tire test, and a bunch of the executives were there, which is unusual. And
Right.
the lead guy came up to me, guy named Tom Wallace. He's like, "Hey, we'd like you to come out to Chateau Elan for a meeting this evening at 7:00." I'm like, "Yeah, sure." So I go into this meeting, and it's a big conference table with all the big heavy hitters, executives from GM, and Tom's like, "Tell me why you would want the engine in the middle or the back of a car." And I was like, "Oh," because there
Uh-huh.
are reasons related to physics to do that. And
That's
so
right.
I gave them the whole spiel on it, and then lo and behold, they those were the early, very beginning days of the C8. So yeah, no, they
Nice.
did the styling of it. I don't know whether you've been in one, but
I have.
the cockpit is beautiful. Tad Schuchter, who is the chief engineer, did such a
Right.
great job, and they finally got mega awesome seats in the car. And I remember, you used to go to like Corvette, meetings, and there'd be 300 or 400 people there, and the chief engineer, and this is when they made crappy seats, for the Corvette. I mean, Corvette's a fast car in the corner.
Right.
So you need a seat that holds you. And he'd be
Right.
like, "Oh, so here loves this, who here loves the seat?" And they're all like, "Hey, we love the seats." And, because they love everything Corvette,
Sure.
and I remember being like, you know what? Ferrari does not go to their customers and ask them, "Do you like the seats?" Ferrari builds a seat that's right and then tells the customer why the seat is right. And
Okay.
so with the Corvette, they finally have that seat that if you want to decide to drive your car, fast on a windy road, or you've got to make an evasive maneuver, that seat's holding you. So bravo to Taj and the guys at Corvette for getting that right.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because I actually did get to drive one. I went to visit Mr. Morris, and
Yeah.
he had one, and he let me drive that, and I was knocked out by it. It was
Yeah.
probably one of the quickest cars I've ever driven, and the handling was amazing. I was knocked out by it. And then we
Yeah.
got out of the car, and he says, "So tell me, how much do you think this car is worth, or what would
Yeah.
what's the sticker price going to be?" And I guessed over 120,000. He's
Yeah.
like, "Nope, basic model 50,000." I was
Yeah.
like, "Okay, I'll take two."
Yeah, no, it is mind blowing. What GM has achieved with the Corvette, the technology that they put into it, the power. Z06 is the next gen version going to be coming out soon, and I got to tell you, you know what? I mean, I did so many and was fortunate enough to do a lot of cool things throughout my life, my career. But I know people will always remember me most for what we did with Corvette. I mean, myself and the other
Sure.
drivers at that time pretty much laid the foundation for Corvette racing and it moving forward. And that the fact that it is, still in existence and still competing, I think speaks volumes to just what we established as to what the standard needs to be and all that kind of stuff. So great car and very was fortunate enough to be put in the Corvette Hall of Fame. So that's
Congratulations.
a lot of rocking chair equity. They're 10,
Right.
15 years from now when I'm sitting on the back of my yacht with my pinky out and
That's
remembering.
right.
Having girls in bikinis bring me adult beverages, and
yes.
off with you. And but there are going to be so many great stories to share.
Absolutely. Well, you shared a whole bunch of them today. I want to wish you a very happy birthday because
Thank
I
you.
know that's coming up in a few days. And
Yeah.
to your son, Kanan, as well. It's coming up in a few days. And this has been a very, very fun and very informative episode. And I loved all the stories and learning about you and your career and all that kind of good stuff, Johnny. And thanks for taking the time to be part of this episode of My Right Stuff.
Yeah, Toby, thank you. You and I go back a long way, friends, a long time, and one of those friendships I know is gonna be for life. So anytime I can do anything to help you out, you just let me know.
Thank you, and vice versa, my friend. And I want to thank our sponsor, Tomes, which is a natural sleep and sound healing portal helping many people globally to get to sleep faster and stay asleep longer. You can find this piece of gold at tomes.com, which is www.taumms.com. And most of all, a big thank you to all of you who stream, download, watch, and support My Right Stuff. And please keep spreading the word. Also, we now have a merch store, and you can pick up some snazzy merch for those buddies. And don't forget to tag us in any photos with our merch so we can give you a live shout out on My Right Stuff. And I want to thank our whole My Right Stuff crew for making this podcast possible every week. This has been another exciting episode of My Right Stuff. Be sure to tune in next week and every week for yet another adventurous episode. Please be sure to subscribe on YouTube so you never miss an episode. And I hear it's also good luck, and I'll give you about 10 years good luck. And I'm your host, Lord Toby Wright. And remember, listen loud, play hard, and keep reaching for your dreams. Thank you, Johnny. Have a great night. Take care. Good night.
Thank you for watching My Right Stuff. This episode was brought to you by Tomes, a natural sleep and sound healing portal available globally at www.tomes.com. That's www.taumms.com.